All right, folks, this video is to try to help us figure out how to graph, just in case we didn't get it in class and you just need a little reminder, all right? So the idea is we have our data table. You can see Team 1 for Period 6 did a nice colorful job. I liked it, so I wanted to go with it. So they've learned how to fill in with color, just like I did here. Now, everybody's data sheet, you'll notice it has these little boxes down here, and this is where we're going to add our data. Because the way that's originally arranged, it doesn't want to graph too well. So I made these little sections for us just to re-input our numbers. So we'll type our numbers back into these areas so we can get a more clear graph. One thing we got to do is if you have numbers in these squares or cells, and in a spreadsheet, each little box is called a cell. So if you have letters, like this number is 3.75 centimeters. If we try to graph it with the letters centimeters, it wouldn't work. So we have to remove these letters when we copy it down into here. So for any that you see with letters, so for this control and for these experimentals, we'll have to remove the centimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this real quick. We put 3.75, copying it down, just like I see it. 13. For day 11, it was 12.2. Notice this was a comma here, so I'm even correcting that. It used to be a comma. That wouldn't work out in graphing, so I'm changing it to a decimal. And then it's 13.34 centimeters for day 13. So I'm just going to have everything but the centimeters. And then what we want is the average growth for the experimental. We have that. Now we need the average growth for the control, which are these. So we're going to take these numbers now and put them right next to them. For day 6, it was 4.48. For day 8, so for day 8 all the way across was 9.25. For day 11, it was 16.54. And then for day 13, it was 21.5. All right. The next thing to do is click the first top box here, starting with day. And you have two ways of doing this. You can click and then drag, so you highlight all of these together. You want to highlight it all together. Or you click this box and then grab that little, you see the little blue box here, and then you click it and you can drag it to it. Whoop, that didn't work. All right, so I had to fix it because I turned all of these into saying the same thing. So just real quick again, you're going to choose the day box, and then you just hold and click, and we'll highlight all the boxes together. You want to highlight this whole set of data. The day, the average growth of the experimental cup, and the average growth of the control cup, and we have it included all the days and the heights of the plants. We just removed the centimeters. Now once you have it all highlighted, you go up to the top right here. It's a little thing, it says Insert Chart. You're going to click here, and it automatically knows to use this data. But what it will do is it'll always automatically put it in a certain type of chart. So that's when we have to decide. So we have this little chart editor over here on the right that pops up, and we can change this to any type of graph we want. We can change it to this. We could change it to something that looks like a pie chart. We can turn it into something that looks like a map. The question is what type of graph would work the best for our data? And for me personally, I think the best one would be a line chart. But let's see if a scatter plot looks well. So a scatter plot can often work well. And you can see you can cover each and see the exact height of it. You can see that red automatically is known as the average growth of the control cup. We know that blue is automatically, because of the key, we have average growth of the experimental cup. And we can see how the growths compare. At any point, you can go over here and change the style of the chart. I think for us right now, it might make the most clear sense to use the line chart, because the lines, you can see the solid lines, makes it a little easier. At any point along the data where we had a measurement, we can highlight the line and it will tell us the exact height. Now we have this. I'm going to take this and shrink it a little, just so it fits in between. So you can kind of customize it to the size you want. I just want it to fit nice and neatly next to this one, the data table. Okay, I made it a little bigger on the screen just so we can see a little more clearly, hopefully. Now, it has a title, Average Growth of Experimental and Average Growth of Control. I'm fine with that. We have a label for the x-axis. We see the numbers here represent days. Now, here, though, is the question. You notice there's not a label for what these numbers represent. So it doesn't, the computer and the software for Google Sheets doesn't automatically know that these numbers are height. So we need to tell it that. So the next thing we do is we go over to the right where the chart editor is. And just in case, if this were to disappear and you're not sure what to do, if you click on the chart, there's 3 dots, and you can always do it immediately just by hitting Edit Chart. You can make it go away, but if you need to do any change to the chart, just hit Edit Chart. And now we're going to customize, and we see there's a title called Chart Axis Titles. Now, chart style, that's something you could mess around with later and customize. You can do all kinds of color. You could make it, you can see, you can change the background colors. You can have fun with it. The font, you can change the font to Verdana, right? So you can do all kinds of things you like, whatever you might like to do. I would encourage you to have fun with the chart styling and stuff just so you can have it colorful and just you can have some creativity with it. But for now, we want to make this have a title so we know what these numbers mean. So we're going to go to Chart Axis Titles. We're going to go to Horizontal Axis, otherwise known as the Y-axis. So we're going to Horizontal or the Y-axis. We're going to click it and, oh, sorry, not horizontal. We're going to vertical, the vertical or the Y-axis. And we're going to say that it is plant. I'm going to take all caps away. Plant height. And I'm going to indicate that it's in centimeters, so we all know that we measured in centimeters. And then it looks pretty good. We could bold it out if we want, so it stands out a little more. And then we could even bold out the horizontal axis for day. We can make it look a little more clear too. And now we have a y-axis or a vertical axis labeled. We now have a boldened out and clearly labeled horizontal axis. We have a chart title, and we have a key indicating what each color represents. That, in general, is good enough for me. You could go on and do lots of other customizations. You could change up the vertical axis if you wanted. You could remove. You could add things. You could make even more vertical lines if you want. You can do all kinds of, you see how many changes. You can customize everything, whatever you need, okay? And again, you could go to chart style and do a lot of interesting variations on this. You can see how, and I would recommend, go ahead and have fun with it. See how much you can customize and still capture all the important data. All right, good luck. All right, so we're all fine and dandy. We've graphed this data for the average growth of the experimental and control cup, but we do have one last one. We want to graph the number of plants in the experimental cup and the number of plants in the control cup. So just like you see here, you would copy these numbers down. You can see that, so for number of plants, we have this one right here, so clear numbers. I was tripping out because it was a decimal value. So we have the number of plants in the experimental cup, and it's just 8, 12, 13. Oh, this is day 13. It says 16, and day 11 says 13, and then day 8 is 12, and then day 6 is 8, and then blank, right? So the normal results in this would be no more than 13 seeds. So if they have 16 grasses growing in their cup, that indicates that they did potentially plant more than they should have in their cup. Perhaps a student made the accident of dropping more or not realizing how many they had planted. So the top number should only be 13, but in this cup, in this case, they have 16 plants in this cup. We're just going to move forward with the results. Even though we have a little bit of experimental error, we're going to continue just so you can see how to graph. All right, for the control cup, we have up to 14 plants that have grown. So you can see, again, there's experimental error there, but that's natural. We can learn from it. So if we have experimental error like this, it does make it harder to rely on our results. They make them less trustworthy, but it's a good lesson for us all. And if we're able to follow and always plant just 13, if they both only had 13, this data would be a little more useful, because you could say, well, they both were planted with 13, and then you can see only blank out of the 13 grew, or all of the 13. But because we have different numbers to start with, it's a little harder to compare. But regardless of that experimental error, we're just going to continue. So just like before, you're going to click the day box, and then you're going to click and drag so you highlight the whole complete set of data. And then again, you're going to go up to the insert chart, and you're going to pick the right chart for you. Now, technically, you could use this table, right, the column chart style. You could, if you like. You could also go with the line again, and the line shows how many plants have grown. So it's number of plants. It's not plant growth, but number of plants, right, over 13 days. You could use that as well. Pick a chart, any of the charts that you like. I'm going to stick with the line graph currently, and I'm going to continue on with that. Now you notice that we need to edit this. Edit chart, right? And we're going to customize it so that we can know what these numbers represent. Again, the software didn't know. So we're going to go to Axis Titles. We're going to go to Vertical Axis, and we're going to give a title, which is, let's just do the hashtag or the hash mark, and it's number of plants growing. Right? And now we have a title. We're going to bold it out so it's a little more clear. We're going to click on the horizontal axis. We're going to bold it out. And you can see that the data is a little less clear, but you can see that one cup has more plants growing in it. The experimental had 13, and the final number for the control was 14. All right, hopefully this video helps. All right, take care, guys.